Today I will be taking you through basically the backbone of UX, the what, why, and how of understanding users. So let's go into a little scenario real quick. So let's say you're walking down a street, right? And you see someone waving at you and you notice that, oh, they're not waving at me, they're waving at the person behind me. It's a yikes. Yeah, it's quite awkward, hey? And this is because context matters. People assume things without seeing the full picture. You don't know the full picture, and this happens in design as well. So this is the design thinking process. First off, we empathize, then we define, ideate, prototype, and then test. And to empathize is really important because it's what leads the human-centered products. And it's really, really important because it ensures that you are solving issues that are actually like issues from the users and not what issues that you think are issues. So a UX rule of thumb is that you are not your user and you should never assume that people think like you think. So that is why you always need to empathize. So here you can see we have empathy versus sympathy. Empathy means that you share someone's experience, whereas sympathy is you understand their experience, but you don't actually relate. You don't feel the experience on an emotional level yourself. And it's really important to empathize because it allows you to look through the user's eyes and you become more objective when you design something. And this is important because they are the expert. In the end of the day, you are designing for your users. So to empathize is actually a form of research. So you can do this by asking questions, become more observant, actively listening, being open-minded, and requesting input. You can also follow research from other people as well. So we have a few tools to help us out with this daunting task. So you get empathy maps, journey maps, user personas, and card sorting. So here's the example of an empathy map. So here you can see it's basically you empathize what the user says, does, thinks, and feels. You give them a goal and you take them through the process. So this is buying a TV. And the cool thing about empathy maps is that anyone can do it. It doesn't need to be the end user. It can actually be developers, designers, stakeholders, anyone. And it's quite nice because it's fast and it's inexpensive and you can customize it towards your end goal that you want to achieve. Then we have journey maps. So journey maps tracks what the user is thinking and feeling throughout the whole process, from the start to the end of the journey. So this is for buying a car. So from the considering, seeing the commercial on TV or whatever, to actually deciding on the car itself. So you can realize, you can see with this graph here, what the user is feeling, and you can realize where the improvements can be made. And you can also predict behavior. So if the testing, for instance, is a bit low here, we can empathize with the same journey, can also have the same issues. So a user persona. This is something we quite like to use. Most of you, the UX designers here, know this very well. It's where you create a fictional character that uses the product, the typical user for the product. And you give this character a whole personality as well. You give them demographics, biography, goals, pain points, and you give them skills. One important thing to mention here is that you should never take the stakeholders' advice on a user persona, because they would usually tell you that it needs to be more product focused. So what it ends up being like, you're not making, no one's life aspiration is going to be to open a banking app. So card sorting. So this is a really nice one to use for defining your information architecture. And how it works is you give users sections, and they just drag the cards over to where they think that the items would go. So you can see the user's mental model of what the app, for instance, this app should look like. So enough theory, let's see this in action. So I'll be taking you through a case study that I did at the start of the year. We made an app called Two Left Feet. It was a shoe store. So I tested the UX, the UI, and the information architecture. For the UX, I tested if they can browse and if the person can view and add items to their cart. I tested the UI, so the legibility, accessibility. I want to prevent misclicks, and I want to ensure that the app is consistent throughout. And then information architecture is to check what the users want, don't want, and where they want it. So key insights from that research was that the UI was consistent, the buttons were a bit too small, the filter was a bit lacking because of, in fact, functionality mostly, and that users had to scroll down to see the next button. And they also asked that I make it more engaging for first-time users. So I did a card sorting exercise on this, and basically what I got from that is that users wanted to see a cancel payment, not at the end of the journey, but rather in a menu. And they also wanted to see the search at the home and not in some other category hidden away. So I reiterated, and I changed it like this. So here you can see the buttons are a lot bigger. You can see I implemented the search button on the home, and I made the overall typography a lot more legible. Same with the search. I added additional functionality, and just the overall experience is a lot better based on my research. And same with the checkout. So you can actually see here, you can see that the description of the product was quite light. So there was accessibility issues with that. So make that darker and also show the next button as well. So the key takeaway from this is never assume, empathize with your user, and then iterate your designs based on your feedback. That's it. Thanks for listening to my tech talk.